So good afternoon and welcome. My name is Audrey Roos. I'm the president and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council and an organization called 40 by 80. I am thrilled to be here today, and we are kicking off a week of what I call little bites of STEM with big rock stars. So I'm totally thrilled. I am joined here today by Maria Poloni. She is the STEM engagement coordinator of our nonprofit arm, which I just referenced, 40 by 80. So thank you for joining us. We have over 800 people registered, including students, parents, and educators. We will share some of the schools that are here with us in the chat session of this call, and you should see something popping up at the bottom of your screen right now. Take a peek at the chat to see who else is joining in on this virtual adventure. So many of you may be learning about the Pittsburgh Technology Council and 40 by 80 for the very first time today. So just really brief. We are an organization of more than 1,000 local technology businesses, manufacturing firms, life science organizations who have come together to make our region an amazing place for people to live, to work, and build these incredible companies that together we are changing the world. So what's the most important thing that these companies have asked us to work on? Talent, people. In other words, they want us to tell all of you about some of the fun and exciting jobs that are available for you to pursue right here in Pennsylvania. So before we get too much further, I just want to give a huge shout out to the companies that have supported our work, and they're sponsoring this so that we can make this possible and all of you can have access. So our gold sponsors are BNY Mellon and Giant Eagle. Silver is Lanxess and SDLC Partners. Bronze is CGI and Industrial Scientific, and supporting sponsors are Giftja and Highmark. I also want to let you know that this is being recorded, and also thanks to Pittsburgh PCTV, this is also being simultaneously broadcast and will be available on demand on PCTV's website, which we will give you a link to in our chat. Also, if you live in the city of Pittsburgh, you can watch us on channel 21 on Comcast or channel 47 on Verizon. And lastly, you can watch live on Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV by searching and downloading the Pittsburgh Community TV app. So real quickly about our speakers, and I'm gonna promise you I'm gonna pass the baton to Marie, and our lineup today, we have the Moonshot Factory. We have Adedayo and partner technology manager, and Jessica Trybus, fire starter of Moonshots. So just hang tight, you're gonna hear from them, and I know you're gonna be thrilled. Tomorrow, Friday, May 29th, Duolingo, founder and CEO, Louise Von On. Duolingo, by the way, if you don't know them, they're Pittsburgh's first startup that has been valued at $1 billion. So Monday, University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, Dr. Falo. He actually is on the team. He's one of 2 scientists that are leading the school's work to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. Tuesday, Facebook Reality Labs, based here in Pittsburgh, Chuck Hoover, general manager. And by the way, Facebook has selected Pittsburgh as the lead site for the work in virtual reality. Wednesday, Allegheny Health Networks, really exciting things that are going on in healthcare that all of you should know about. And Friday, Uber, their Advanced Technology Center. We have Julie Durrence, software engineer, and Julie works on building self-driving cars. So on that note, I am gonna pass it over to Marie. You heard me mention her about 40 by 80, and that is our nonprofit arm. And I just want to tell you that 40 by 80, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? It's the longitude and latitude of Pittsburgh. And we are specifically working on ways to help school districts and tech businesses to work together. So to that end, guess what? We hired our own math and sciences teacher, and that is Marie Poloni. So thanks to the charitable work of P&C and bringing the STEM industry leaders into middle school classrooms, and then those students into the office and laboratories of the STEM industry. So I'm excited for this session. I'm excited to meet and greet all of you. And here's to Marie. Thank you all.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much for joining us. As Audrey said, I'm Marie Poloni, the STEM Engagement Coordinator for 40 by 80, and I'm going to be talking to you about how all of you will be participating today. Each day of the STEM Summit, we really want maximum participation from all of you. So if you look down at the bottom of your screen, all of you students, some of you have been saying, oh no, I can't chat. You're right. There's only going to be that Q&A where you're going to be asking questions, and you're able to raise your hand. If you have a question, go ahead, type it in, raise your hand, and we're going to do our best to get to every question. Everything is really secure, so no one will be able to see your name or question except for us as the hosts. Throughout the talk today, the speakers are also going to have some questions for you. When the time comes, I'll put a question up on your screen. Jess and Ade and I are going to be working together to send those questions out to you. And you can go ahead and answer it and see how your answer compares to everybody else. Show us a little bit about what you know. So the time has come for us to finally meet our guests for this today. So I'm going to turn it over to Google and Ade.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Adekunle Adedayo, short Ade. I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Marie, Taylor, and everyone on the PTC team. Super excited to be joining this forum today. I work as a partner technology manager at Google, and throughout this webinar, I'm just going to be sharing some of the things I do at Google, what Google's mission is, and some of the exciting roles and opportunities that we have over at Google. You know, as you think about the future and some of the career opportunities that are available to you, and I'll be chatting through some of those. Hopefully that gets you excited.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ade. Jess, can you introduce yourself to everybody? She is from X, the Moonshot Factory.
Hey everyone, Jessica Trybus here. First of all, I'm a native Pittsburgher, and I started my first company here in Pittsburgh and grew it for 15 years. I'm at X now. I'm a fire starter of Moonshots, where I'll share a little bit about what that means in a couple minutes. But I'm an entrepreneur that joined X to help them work on some big problems, and looking forward to sharing what a moonshot is in a few minutes.
I mean, we are definitely looking forward to that too. In addition to these wonderful speakers, we also have 3 student panelists today. So Ajna and Neve and Dante, if you want to turn on your cameras and turn on your microphones. We have some students who just have a few questions for you before the presentations begin. And Ajna, if you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ashna and I'm a junior, and I was wondering how your educational journey led to your career and how you decided to make different choices between college and your major.
Yeah, I can start with that. So I'm originally from Nigeria, where I completed my bachelor's studies in information systems and management. Before getting into college at the university, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So after high school, I was all over the place. I was very interested in becoming an aeronautic engineer. That didn't quite work out. I took some classes in accounting that I found out later that wasn't my path. And it was after I got into school, I was able to attend a couple of software exhibitions where I saw people doing many, many amazing things. And that's how I got very interested in computer science and web development. So during one of our summer breaks, I took a coding class in Java, and that's how my software development journey began. So by the time I got back to school after the summer break, it was very much easier for me to understand a lot of things they were teaching in class. And I was starting to work on personal projects myself, slowly developing my skills. And I actually did work on a couple of interesting projects and startup ideas, even while in school. So after school, after my bachelor studies, I worked in a couple of companies. I also freelanced a bit, working with different companies, helping to build products. Did that for a little bit. And after starting one of my software companies, which was centered around helping people order food online, I realized there was still a lot I needed to learn. And that was how I came to Pittsburgh. I studied information system management for my master's program. And after that, I interned at IBM and also got a full-time offer at IBM, where I worked as a solution consultant for 2 years. After doing that for a bit, I moved over to Google. And I've been at Google for a little over 3 years, and it's been an amazing journey.
Wow, thank you, Neve. And that's really cool just to see how one skill and one experience leads to the next. Jess, how about you?
Yeah, when I was in high school growing up in the North Hills, I was really interested in a few things. First, sports. I was on team sports. I played a lot of ice hockey and a lot of baseball and some golf, which at the time I didn't really like, but I'm glad that I'm good at that now. And I was also interested in computers and technology, although not sort of to code or program a computer, but more to explore what graphics were and what storytelling was all about and sort of the creative side. Now, remember, this was back in the late 80s and early 90s. And so the video games and the virtual worlds looked a lot different, but I was really interested in sort of the storytelling part of that. I went to college at Cornell University, and I trained to be an actress. I was really interested in entertaining people, loved technology, but interested in the fundamentals of how to perform and what that all meant. Read a lot of Shakespeare. And so that's been really relevant for me. The other thing that I did growing up is I always had an entrepreneurial mind. I was always starting little businesses. They weren't the best businesses, but I learned a lot, about different things. But I was sort of always thinking how to solve problems and how to make money, how to start companies that way. So I moved back to Pittsburgh after spending a few years in California, in both Hollywood and in the Silicon Valley, which is where all the big tech companies are, such as X, and came back to Pittsburgh, unexpectedly went to grad school at Carnegie Mellon because they were joining entertainment and technology, where everyone was going to companies to make virtual worlds and video games and theme parks, basically. And I took a look at that and I said, wait, how can we combine entertainment and technology and solve real world problems? So I started a company back in 2004, the end of 2004, called SimCoach Games, looking at how could you use video games to solve big problems. And so we did a lot of training, a lot of safety, a lot of communication things, even workforce development. I hope someone that's listening here have played some of our games. We've had millions of players. They're free games. X, I knew about X because there's some Pittsburgh connections to the founders, and I was interested in learning more about that, and they were looking for entrepreneurs, and so that's sort of how I joined, and I'm new there. I'm about 7 months in.
That is fantastic. Ajna, that was a great question to be asking, just to look at all the different ways to get there. Neve, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Neve, and I'm a current junior, and I'm interested in what excites you about your chosen career path and the field you're involved in.
Yeah, so personally, what I really, really love about my job and about my role is it's very multidisciplinary in nature. There's just so many different hats that I get to wear. Like I mentioned earlier, I work as a partner technology manager. And within that role, I get to interact with a lot of amazing, interesting people across the organization. And it's a very complex product that I work on. And as a result of that, I get to learn so many amazing things. So there's a lot of growth opportunity in that, in my career path and in my role. And when I say it's multidisciplinary in nature, it's not just solely focused on tech, but I also get to do a lot of business related activities and tasks. So I'm also thinking through the strategies of the product. How do we scale this product to get it to where we want it to be? Currently, we onboard a number of partners, but we're looking to scale that out to get a lot more partners on board. And I'll talk a little more about what I do exactly and the product that I work on. But we're looking to get a lot more partners integrated on our platform. And to do that, you really need to think broadly about how to scale the product. And being able to do that in my current role is something I find really, really exciting. So just the fact that I get to do many different things and I'm learning and growing each and every day is something that gets me super excited.
And definitely it looks like you love your job, which is really, that definitely makes work a little easier to go to every day. Jess, I know that you're going to talk a lot about what makes you excited about your job in your presentation. I'm going to hope that you can answer Dante's question for him. Dante, do you have a question for Jess?
Yes. I was wondering, what's difficult about your job?
Well, it's, we're dealing with a lot of risk. The projects that we're looking at are 5 or more, maybe 10 years away. Sometimes we're talking about, real sci-fi thinking and making that a reality. There's a lot of risk involved, a lot of personal risk and pressure, but I'm loving my job. So I don't know that I embrace the hard stuff right now. That's all I can say right now.
Well, that's good. We're going to learn about some of that hard stuff. So I might, for our lovely student panelists, I'm going to put those other few questions that you have on hold and let them sort of start to show us what they brought to present for us today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ade. Again, to everyone participating, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat or on the Q&A, and as many times as question comes in and it fits in with their presentation, I'm going to do my best to get to your questions. So Ade, I'm going to let you get started. Thank you, both of you, and thank you for our student panelists for now. Ade, I believe you're on mute. Welcome back. Welcome back, buddy. Go ahead.
See my screen okay?
Yes.
Mary? Okay, you can see my screen. Perfect. So today, like I mentioned earlier, just here to talk about some of the exciting things that we do over at Google, and also talk about Google a little bit, our mission, why Google exists. All right. So a number of you might be familiar with what Google's mission is, but it's something that is always good to reinforce. As it's something that really drives a lot of the work that we do. Pretty much everything we do at Google, centers around this core mission that was defined when Google was started. And I'm also quite positive there's a lot of you that make use of our, the different Google products that we have available. Personally, I use a ton of them each and every day, both at work and personally. So I'm very curious to know how many Google products you use at least once a week. How many Google products do you use?
So let's throw a question out there.
Yes, that's my first question.
Yeah, let's do the Google products. So in looking at your Google use, this is for everybody, it all should pop up on your screen. How many Google products, such as Google Assistant, Google Classroom, Google Hangout, Gmail, Google Drive, do you use at least once a week? Go ahead and lock in your answer there. And this just gives Ade some information that he can take back to Google as well. But we know Google is pretty much a household name. See a lot of results coming in. And we have over 400 people joining us today. So we should get a lot of polling in there. I'll share the results when we're done.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
I'm actually surprised as I see some of these numbers go up. Yeah, an option is also none if you're not a Google user. And it could be any Google product, not just the ones that I listed there. All right, we'll just take couple more seconds. All right, very interesting. If I share those results, it looks like 173 of you, 48% of you use 5 or more of those Google products, even more than the ones that we named. Very few of you have used none. You can see the experience there across the board, Ade.
Well, That is amazing, especially people using up to or more than 9. That's really amazing. Yeah, personally, I use up to 10. Like I mentioned, there's just so many amazing Google products out there. And like I mentioned earlier, all of these different products, you get the idea that it's centered around this core mission that we have to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. This is what Google looked like back then when it started. Oops, I already gave out the answer to my second question, but that's very okay. Google started way back in 1998. And when we started initially, this was what the home page looked like. And it was more so focused around that first part of our mission, which is to make information easily accessible. So there was a lot of web crawling and web indexing going on at the time, because we needed to get a lot of that information that people were possibly be searching for. And that's why today, when you go over to google.com, you can find a lot of information that you might be looking for. Each and every day, we're crawling websites as they become available, just to ensure that people find whatever information that they are looking for. And as the product, as Google has grown over the years, there's a lot of emphasis on the second part of our mission, which is to make information very, very useful. So it's not just about searching for something, but also being able to do something useful, right? And I'm going to show this video that demonstrates one of the ways we're building products that are useful. Can you hear the audio okay, Mari?
Yes, we can hear it. Words are translated every day.
Thank you very much for your help.
Words about food. Words about friendship. About sport. About belief. About fear. Words that can hurt and sometimes divide. But every day, the most translated words in the world are "How are you?" "Thank you." And "I love you."
Yeah, so that's Google Translate. Some of you might be familiar with that or used it at some point, but that's one of the products that we have out there. And you can see how people are making use of this particular product. There's a lot of times you're in some new or unfamiliar environment, and there are words that you come across, or even interacting with people that you might meet online. You want to be able to speak their language, and Google Translate is one of those products that can actually help you meet that need. So we're really transitioning into thinking about the different needs, that our users have, and seeing how we can help fulfill those needs. So it's not just primarily about searching and finding information, but also being able to do something useful after finding that information. For example, the product that I work on, it's called Media Action, and it's really focused on helping you find what to watch, movies to watch, music to listen to. But beyond finding a song, a movie to watch, we also have this understanding that searching for a movie, it's not because you just want to look at the result on our screen, but you also want to be able to do something after that, which ultimately I would imagine is to watch that movie. So we're thinking about the entire user journey and thinking about how to fulfill that user journey. So if a user comes on screen and searches for a movie, what are they actually trying to do? If they want to decide whether or not to watch the movie, it would be helpful to find some reviews about the movie, get some understanding of the ratings of the movie. So if you look at Google search now, you'll see some review results, and you also see some ratings from sites like Rotten Tomatoes. So that way you get an understanding of whether or not this is a movie I'm actually interested in seeing. Another thing that you see on the screen, on the result page, are different platforms that actually have that movie available. So you get a sense of whether or not it's a movie that you can watch. There's some platforms that might be offering the movie for free. There's some platforms that might require you to subscribe to the movie. If you have a subscription for that particular platform, you can just easily click on that result, and it takes you directly to watch the movie, right? So thinking essentially about the entire user journey and asking the questions, how can we help users fulfill, that particular need that they have? Why are they making that search? And can we help them towards that journey or towards that goal that they're trying to meet? So you see like a number of different Google products that we have available on screen right now. There's over 60 of them, but there are even other products outside of this that Google offers, and it's great to see, like we found out earlier, that there are people that actually make use of more than 9. All of these are very, very useful products, and as you look through them or make use of them, you get the sense that it's very tied to our core mission to make information useful and accessible and very, very much useful.
Ade, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 minute, if you don't mind. Are you able to go back? Are you able to go back?
Yes.
Okay, great. 2 questions from a student. Sophia had a great question, and it's something that I love. This is the math teacher in me. But does the word Google, she said, have any connection to the number Google?
Oh, yes, that's
I can help you, Ade. I don't want you to be stumped. I can help you.
Help me, Mary. Yes, it does, but help me.
I will help you. It is 1 with a million zeros after it.
Thank you, Mary.
And it's spelled a little differently as well. It's spelled Googol. But thank you, Sophia, for bringing that up, because I think that is super cool. And then the other question, one from Logan, he wanted to ask about Google AI. And I just thought, while you had this screen up here, which of these up here, I think Google Assistant is an AI for Google, right?
Yes. So the cool thing is a lot of the products that we have actually make use of AI in one way or another, right? So if you consider Google search, for example, a lot of the results that you see on screen, you actually have some AI algorithms or model that actually powers those results to ensure that they're very, very relevant. If you look at Google Mail, Gmail, for example, if you make use of Gmail, there are features like Smart Compose, such that while you're typing on screen, before you complete a sentence, it actually auto-fills it for you. It gives you a sense of what you're trying to, write out, and you can just press on tab and it just fills that out for you. So you don't have to do all of that typing. Those are things that make use of AI and machine learning. So you have AI and machine learning baked into almost all of these products that you see, but we also offer tools and technologies that are very, very specific to ML and AI developers. If you're looking to create your own model, for example, there are tools like TensorFlow that allow you to do things like that, right? But artificial intelligence and machine learning is something that you typically see across all of our different products in one way or another.
Thank you for that. And I'll just address some of the students. Zach, our student panelist, Neve, is actually going to be asking your question in a little bit. And Logan, I love your question too. We're going to ask that at the end. All right, keep going.
Okay. Right, so another thing I wanted to call out, because we think of Google as primarily a technology company, and it's just very easy to think it's only engineers that are over the company, but there are many amazing people that are doing many interesting things to get the products that you use out there, to scale those products and make them available to end users, to our clients, our partners. There's so many people working across the board to make that happen. And you see about 9 different teams here, and engineering and technology is just one of them. So you also have sales, service, and support. I actually am under this particular team as a partner technology manager, because there are tools that have been designed, and we are looking for ways to bring partners on board to make use of those tools. So I would be part of the sales, service, and support. You also have marketing, finance, business strategy, people thinking about how we actually get the product out there, and to ensure that the product is actually doing what it's meant to be doing. There are also design folks, people that are working on the different beautiful interfaces that you see. You also have legal teams, right? There's a lot of legal consideration when you're building this product, and when you're at the scale of a company like Google, there are many legal considerations. So we have people working in legal. You have human resources, people that are helping recruit a lot more talent across the board, and facilities, reimagining the way that we do our work, ensuring that the workspace that we have is very well equipped to do the type of work that we do. So if you have any particular interest, you see there's a lot of opportunities that are available to you, and you're not stuck with being an engineer to work at a place at Google, at a place like Google.
Thank you so much for that, Ade, because I know that we had talked about that with our student panelists, and that Ajna will be asking that question of Jess. But as we look at Google Pittsburgh, and there is a great picture up there of everything that is part of Google Pittsburgh, before we transition into Jess, I just want to talk about two of these students' questions. We have Google Pittsburgh as you have it on the screen. Logan wants to know, is Google in other countries besides the United States, such as underdeveloped countries?
Yes, Google is in a lot of other countries and cities outside of the US. There's over 80 Google offices across the world, almost in every continent. We have a Google office in Africa, for example, in a place like Ghana. You have Google office in Nigeria. You have Google offices in Asia, Singapore, Tokyo. So yes, Google is all over the place.
Thank you, Ade. That is amazing. I am going to hand it over to Jess. I'm going to hold some of our questions for the end. I want to make sure we have time to jump into X the Moonshot Factory. So, yes. Jess, take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to start by sharing this video.
As kids, we question everything, imagine anything, and refuse to accept the impossible. Well, what if we never stop thinking that way? What if deliberately running into the unknown is our best hope for solving our biggest problems? That's why X, the Moonshot Factory, was created. Inspired by the original Moonshot, we've assembled a mix of talented and curious individuals from a wide range of fields.
We're circling through that air and then going out again.
Working together, we constantly talk to people with perspectives other than our own. Because to pull off a moonshot, you need pollination between different fields of knowledge.
I'm a neuroscientist.
I'm a roboticist.
An entrepreneur. Product designer.
Hardware engineer.
We prototype. We test. We iterate. And we fail. A lot. Until we don't. This is, after all, about doing the seemingly impossible, like making it safe and easy for anyone to get around, delivering goods autonomously through the air, giving everyone access to the internet, finding new, sustainable ways to feed the world, and turning air into drinking water, daring to leave the safe and familiar behind, and walking into the unknown, while remembering that most of what we do today was once unthinkable. With that mindset, what couldn't we do?
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you hear me, Marie?
Yep, we can hear you.
You are awesome.
Awesome. All right, so inside the Moonshot Factory, and before I forget, what I really wanted to say about one of the things that I really love about my job is that they're asking me to bring my imagination, the imagination and the expectation to solve big problems and help and change the world that I had as a child and a teenager, and I really love that. So X is a Moonshot Factory. We're a diverse group of inventors and entrepreneurs who build and launch technologies to improve lives of millions, if not billions, of people. We create radical new technologies to help solve some of the world's hardest problems. So what is a moonshot? Well, we define it in this sort of Venn diagram in 3 areas where they intersect. One is a huge problem. If the world, if we solved this problem, it would improve the lives of billions of people. And we think of this as 10x impact, not 10% impact, but 10x impact. A radical solution that sounds impossible today, almost like science fiction, but which we might think what might actually work. And a breakthrough technology. These technologies or a technology might exist today and could help us, when applied to this problem, solve it within 5 or 10 years. So we're a little further out there than having to get a product out in a year or 2 or even 3. So we have the moonshots, and these are the audacious innovations that can solve huge problems for billions of folks in the long term. And then we have the factory too, which is actually a physical place in Mountain View, California, where we have really special people, processes that we're continuing to iterate and evolve, and a culture, a very special culture that together create breakthrough technologies. And we're trying to create sustainable and repeat the process. So not just one moonshot, but can we do this in a repeatable way? So we look at our approach to innovation with sort of a mix of principles and processes. As far as the overall high-level process, we have sort of ideas coming from all over the place. And certainly within X, people can pitch projects. We have a lot of those, and they go through sort of a rapid evaluation phase with an interdisciplinary team. We might kill projects in a few hours, a few weeks, a few months. If they sort of meet the litmus test, they'll move on to an early stage project. My role is in the early stage pipelines, where projects are like startups or early stage projects, and we continue to de-risk those. And the whole goal after months or a couple years is to graduate those, and they have more rigor to them, graduate them to full-fledged X projects. And these full-fledged X projects have more support, they have more formal teams on them, and they can be in this stage for up to 5 years. If they make it past this stage, they graduate, and that is where they go off and become other companies outside of X and live on their own. And we go back to investing our time and efforts into those first 3 stages of the process. So that was a linear chart, and it makes it seem like all of the projects sort of fit in a nice little box in the process in a linear way, but the trick is to find the right balance, and this is sort of more like what a moonshot journey looks like. I was just thinking about this yesterday on something I'm working on, and I feel like my yellow line and my blue line are actually a little more north and a little more south of this right now, as I try to figure out how to get going in the direction I want to go. But if you structure the approach too much, creativity could be squeezed out, and we might not discover things which are essential to real innovation. But if there's not any structure at all, there can be sort of a lack of velocity and direction for projects, which could let inertia set in. So over the years, as we've been building the Moonshot Factory and innovation, we've found multiple paths to the moon. These are some of the companies, the graduates of X projects over the years. Verily is a life sciences company, and Waymo is an autonomous vehicle company. Loon, just to name a few, it had balloons in the stratosphere, delivering Wi-Fi basically to remote and rural areas. Wing is a drone delivery platform. And we have some principles that are really important to our culture, and that we talk a lot about. And I want to go through them really quickly. The first is, I mentioned that is to make things 10x better, not just 10%. And we found that it's actually easier to get great people to work with you on harder and more ambitious problems. When was the last time you got really excited by someone asking you to make something that was basically the same, just a little bit better? So we don't want to go in that direction. Then we certainly evaluate our moonshots based on the impact that they could have. We find that 10x lights a fire in your heart, not just in your mind. The second tip is to work on the hardest things first. It sounds obvious, but it's actually really hard to do. So in this picture, imagine you're trying to teach a monkey to recite Shakespeare while standing on a pedestal. What do you do first? Do you train the monkey or build the pedestal? The obvious answer is to train the monkey, but that's the hardest part, so people avoid it. So why don't they go after the monkey? Well, most people are afraid of failure. So if you build the pedestal first, you feel like you're making progress, and you can sort of show it off to your boss or your educators, but you're not going to find sort of the Achilles heel. You want to discover that by going after the hardest part first. Our third principle is to make contact with the real world. I'm sure some of you entrepreneurs out there have heard this before. You know, we can sit in a room, sit in our office and create the greatest thing. But until it sort of hits the real world, we really don't know if it's going to solve a problem in the right way. This picture is referencing a project at X where they were installing some basically communications hardware. And, you know, they really had this all figured out in the lab, but when they started to install it in sort of rural areas of India, for instance, they didn't know that monkeys constantly are jumping and sort of moving around on these pedestals that they put this equipment on. And monkeys are really, really territorial. And so this sort of became a really important design consideration for them, but they would have never figured this out had they have like scaled and delivered to, you know, hundreds or thousands of these units if they wouldn't have gotten out and sort of tried things out. The fourth tip is to fall in love with the problem. You know, at X, we try to fall in love with the problem, not the technology. If you fall in love with the problem, what you're actually falling in love with is the best way of solving that problem. So again, it's, you know, common for technologists to go off and build something really awesome and fall in love with what they built. And it's easy to say, you know, wow, look at this cool thing that I've invented. It must be great for something. But they become so wedded to the tech that they find it hard to pivot away once they realize, after, you know, sometimes a large expenditure of time and money, that it doesn't solve the problem. So we want folks to fall in love with the problem almost first and continue to focus on that so that they can be really honest when they're building things. People hate failing, but what we love is learning. And learning is not possible without failing. And so spectacular failures are embraced at X. You know, you got to try. You know, it might sound crazy, but let's try it. And we can learn from that. And after, you know, sort of failure, iteration, failure, iteration, failure, iteration, we're going to discover something. And sort of that's the promise. That's the hope. And so just the summary of our principles was the 10X, not 10%. Run at the hardest parts of the problem first. Fall in love with the problem, not the technology. Make contact with the real world, and really celebrate learning because you're trying. And that's how you're going to move ahead and eventually invent or create something really solves problems. So that's all I had on sort of what is the Moonshot Factory and what is a moonshot.
Jess, I just have to say that you and Ade for sure have inspired me just by watching this, and by all of these questions in the chat, you have inspired so many of our participants today. So I just want to get to a few of these questions here in the chat. So exciting. And some of them you did answer, just sort of what are the projects that you've been working on? What have been some of the successful projects? You know, I just want to let you students know, like Jackie and Shannon and Logan and Devin, your questions pretty much got answered. One student asked, and this was down here for Jacqueline, she said, do you believe technology is the answer? And I think you did a great job of answering that and saying, like, technology is a really big help, but you've got to fall in love with that problem. So I thought that that would help us with one of our polling questions. So students, if you guys could all get ready to answer again. In listening to Ade and in listening to Jess, what type of problem-solving strategies are you the most familiar with? And it might be more than one here. Is it the engineering design process? Is it the scientific method, human-centered design, or is it test and modify? Go ahead and choose your answer. And of course, you're probably familiar with all of these or more than these. I know human-centered design is just huge right now and really successful. But what have you found the most success with, I guess? What are you using the most to all of the participants? Go ahead and keep logging in. Really close answers. Scientific method, of course, has been around a long time and it definitely works. Same with engineering design process, which has that test and modify. Human-centered design is definitely a new idea. I'm going to go ahead and share these results. So you can see there that scientific method seems like it's the most commonly used, but definitely human-centered design is used as well. What would you say you use the most, Jess, out of those?
Well, definitely human-centered design for me. Although, well, test and modify. So sort of quick to get a prototype going, like really quick. Just start building, you know, almost like as you're flying the plane is really, really important. And then test, iterate. So, and the other sort of more scientific method and engineering design process, we certainly collaborate with folks on sort of, you know, because there's a lot of hardcore science that's involved sometimes in solving problems.
Ade, would you sort of agree with that? What do you use a lot in your practice, just in comparing to our participants today? Oh, you're still, I'm sorry, Ade, you're still muted.
Oh, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. One thing I'm also starting to look into a lot more these days is just thinking in first principles. I recently learned about that, and it's pretty much considering, so first principles are assumptions that you really can't break down any further. So in thinking about a problem, knowing what the first principles are there, and then kind of building up on top of that. So when I'm approached with some difficult challenge and problem right now, I start to think about that a lot and seeing how I can build on those fundamental truths. And that has helped me in solving a lot of problems that have come across at work. But definitely +1 to collaboration that Jess had talked about, super important, because you have amazing people that you work with. It's important to also draw from their knowledge and experience. That's really how you make progress forward on anything that you're working on.
Thank you. That is a good answer for sure. And we have a great question that came in from Brianna. She wants to know, Jess, what is your best failure?
Wow. Well, I've had a lot of failures since I was young and in my early companies, and you know, certainly there were many pivots to my video game company on how to scale. So, you know, I guess you can consider those failures, but I look back and I say no, that those were learning, and we, you know, catapulted on. So, you know, I think my biggest failure is when I haven't just jumped in and tried. I didn't just try, even if you know, I thought I have no idea what to do. It's going to be bad. It's going to stink. I'm not as smart as all the folks that I'm working with. I'm not as creative as all these folks. I can't draw. I can't my program, like whatever it was. Those are where my biggest regrets have come, when I didn't just try.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. And all of you participants today that just really letting go of that self-doubt and jumping in and not being afraid to fail. You heard from both Ade and Jess that failure is for sure part of their process and that they wouldn't get to their final products without it. So that is fantastic. My gosh, I wish we had all the time in the world. There are so many great questions in here. I want to make sure that Neve and Ajna get their chance to ask final questions before we log off. I truly wish we had hours because there are so many questions coming in. I want to also just ask quickly before Neve, if you're ready, you're going to go next there, buddy. But are there any programs, and this comes from Elaine, are there any opportunities at the Moonshot Factory or at Google Pittsburgh, any programming that you do already for middle schooler or high schoolers that you can think of? And you can even just name them quickly because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I would love to look at I think it's called Code with Google. If you go on, if you do a search for Code with Google, you see a lot of resources that kind of gets you started with coding, if that's something that you're interested in. And there's also a number of other initiatives that we have, especially for students that are getting into college. It's called CSSI, Computer Science Summer Institute, where we actually bring students on campus or even go out to the colleges to teach people how to code and get them ready for the school year so that when they get started, they're already familiar with some of the basics there. We're also doing that this year, but it's going to be virtual. And we already have the core assembled for this year, but it's definitely something to look out for next year. It's something we do every year. So look out for that, Computer Science Summer Institute, and also look up Code with Google. You'll find a lot.
That is excellent, Ade. That is great. We can definitely look out for those. Jess, did you have an answer for that, or
nothing really to add? I mean, I know from being in Pittsburgh that Google Pittsburgh has done a lot of outreach in the community and in the school through Remake Learning, for instance. I'm not aware of any formal programming at X. We're sort of a different size and sort of scope, but we do have formal internship programs when folks are older in the graduate level that we look at. But I'll get back to you if I learn of any formal programs from Mountain View.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Neve and Ajna, do you want to be our grand finale? Can you please ask us your final questions? If you want to pop on the screen, Neve, that would be great. And Neve, why don't you go ahead and ask your question of Jess?
Got it. So basically, kind of stemming off the last question, I guess, if as prospective students, if we were interested in working at Google or X Labs in the future, what type of advice would you give us?
So again, just try stuff, whether it's, try to solve your own problem or start your own company or build your own game. Like, I don't know, whatever it is with friends or peers, whether it's sort of part of a formal school thing or you're just doing it on your own. You'll learn from that. And if you really think it's fun, then that's a good thing. You'll be sort of motivated to learn all the skills you need to do. A lot of folks that I work with, it's very interdisciplinary. They embrace sort of this yes and culture and value of like respecting the other side, not trying, if you're a programmer, I'm not trying to be the best programmer, and sort of different creative views. So surround yourself with different types of people that also have a mindset of like, yes, and like, we can do this, even though I have different ideas and different skills and different thoughts than you on how to do it. That's really important. I think it's great if you want to pursue, disciplines and studies in a particular area and have a foundation. What I've seen a lot in the last couple of years is undergrads, and especially, are creating their own paths, creating their own majors, which looks a little bit left brain and a little bit right brain at the same time. And that's seems to be pretty standard. And so those are things some things that are really important. And the last thing is, I believe it's really important for folks to learn how to code, not youth today, because it's a language to solve problems, and it doesn't mean that you have to be an engineer or a programmer, but I think it's a really important foundation to understand how these problems are being solved and how they could using technology.
That's huge for all of us on the call, educators, participants, to know that from both of you, you both spoke about coding, and to really ramp that up in our school districts and in our classrooms. Ajna, why don't you ask our final question? And I think that will also go to Jess, because I know Ade did answer it in his presentation, and then we're going to kick it back to Audrey to close us out for the day.
Hi, so I know that you guys both talk so much about your own personal journeys in computer science, but I was wondering a little bit about like some of your peers and how they got to where they are, and like how collaboration really matters when it comes to the technology industry.
Well, collaboration is huge. If I understand your question, you're talking about sort of the interdisciplinary approach. There are folks that I work with that are, some of the top researchers or scientists in their specific field. There's a strong amount of machine learning, artificial intelligence, like basically programming depth. I come from sort of the storytelling side of it, like what's possible, and sort of trying to convene teams to say we can do this, even though I have no idea what the code's going to look like or what the technology is going to look like. And so part of my job, maybe, I think, as an entrepreneur, is to be a cheerleader and continue to push the vision and the story, and have
know what minds to pick, to know what brains to pick out there along with you. I appreciate so much your time today and letting us pick your brains. Audrey, I'm going to kick it over to you before we run out of time to close us out for the day. Ajna and Neve and Dante, thank you for joining us too, and Ade and Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate this. Thank you all for joining. I hope you had a blast. I hope you learned. I hope you stay connected, and you better join tomorrow. We have co-founder, CEO of Duolingo, global company based in Pittsburgh. You're going to hear the real story tomorrow. Stay tuned and have a great evening.